Before we get started, I just want to ask you a very, very important question, and I think there'll be some interesting answers also. Have you ever witnessed or even heard of a murder happening in your city, your town, or your locality? I'm guessing that most of you haven't experienced something like this, and for the longest time, even I didn't. I've spent most of my life in Chennai, specifically in this area called Anna Nagar, where I've gone to school, I've hung out with my friends, walked endlessly on the same streets, eaten at the same restaurants, and this has been close to 15-20 years of my life. And generally, except a few commercial spaces, Anna Nagar is this very, very calm, very peaceful residential area. And in August 2021, I read this. Man hacked to death at Anna Nagar. A 48-year-old man was hacked to death by a gang at Anna Nagar around 10 p.m. on Wednesday night. When I heard this news for the first time, I obviously felt scared, I felt confused. But at the same time, I wanted to know more. Like, why did this happen? How did this happen? What happens to the family that the man left behind? And do they ever get justice? And maybe this is why, as humans, we find this genre of true crime or murder mystery stories so interesting. Whether it's books or movies or TV shows, we go from being just a viewer to a participant in the story, entering that world, trying to solve clues and figuring out the mystery along with the protagonist. And in the end, when the murderer or serial killer or whoever gets caught, even if our guess was right or wrong as to who the killer was in the story, when the criminal gets caught, we feel a sense of justice. And taking off from that, today I wanted to recommend some of my favorite murder mystery TV shows which are going to keep you hooked. Let's get started. Show number one is Only Murders in the Building on Disney plus Hotstar. This show takes off from exactly what I was talking about earlier. What if a murder happens in your own building? Three strangers who live in the same building in New York, played by Selena Gomez, Martin Short and Steve Martin, who are two of the greatest comic actors of all time. These three strangers have a common obsession because of which they meet and become close to each other. They love the same true crime podcast. And one night, a crime happens in their own building. One of the residents gets murdered, and what these three people do is, because of their interest in true crime, because of this happening in their own building, in their locality, and to find out more about what really happened, these three decide to start their own true crime podcast, discussing, discovering, investigating, and solving every clue, every mystery with each and every episode. On a plot level itself, this is so bizarre, so interesting, but beyond that, the chemistry that this odd group shares, the tone of the show, the writing, the genre that constantly shifts between humor and mystery, which is such a strange combination if you think about it. It's a combination that should never work, but it still does. And everything about the show is just gold. This show released on Hulu first, and the first episode became the most watched comedy premiere on the platform in history. And by the season finale, the demand of the show grew around 37 times, purely based on the word of mouth of fans who got addicted to this insanely unique show. This is not a spoiler, but just watch out for season 1, episode 7. This episode is called The Boy from 6B, and once you watch it, this episode is going to leave you speechless. Pun intended. Number 2 and number 3 are quite similar in their setting. Both of these stories happen in this small, unsuspecting town. If you watched Sural on Prime Video that came out recently, these shows pretty much fit into that setting. At number 2 is Broadchurch, which was on Netflix and it's not there anymore, but please find a way to watch the show. UK, right, is the land of these two literary legends. The first one is, of course, Agatha Christie, the queen of murder mysteries, who's written some of the most popular murder mystery books like Murder on the Orient Express, Death on the Nile. So many of her books have been converted into movies. And number 2 is Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who pretty much created the most iconic detective in pop culture history, Sherlock Holmes. So inherently, UK has this really strong culture of telling murder mysteries. Maybe because of the weather or the low population or I don't know, but no one does this genre like the British, which makes Broadchurch one of the greatest British murder mystery shows of all time. The setting is a British seaside town where you'd never expect that any crime or any bad thing happens. But when the town wakes up to a 11-year-old boy lying dead on the beach, shit starts getting crazy. It'll be a crime if I tell you anything more about the show, because even the cast members, while shooting, even they had absolutely no idea about the identity of the killer in the story, and the crew made sure about it until the very end so that it never gets leaked out to the public. When the show came out for the first time, as the episodes progressed, the audiences started playing guessing games. They started writing these long conspiracy theories as to who the killer could be, which I guess is the success of such a show. To make it even better, it's a superbly short show. It has legendary performers like David Tennant and Olivia Colman. So if you like the murder mystery genre, Broadchurch is an unmissable show, and like I said before, please find a way to watch it. You know where to find it. Number 3 on this list is Mare of Easttown on Disney Plus Hotstar. HBO is known for making some of the most amazing TV shows ever. The Wire, Sopranos, Succession, and even most of Game of Thrones, just if you ignore that pathetic last season. Mare of Easttown is another trophy show for HBO, which itself was nominated for around 16 Emmy nominations and even won 4 of them. It's a very intriguing, slow burn kind of show that's really going to keep you guessing once again, just like Broadchurch. But the best part about the show is Kate Winslet, who plays the lead, who plays Mare. This character that she plays, she used to be this local hero of that small town. She was the star of her basketball team in school, so pretty much the entire town knows her. She spent all her life in that town. When someone like her, in her adulthood, when she becomes a detective and she fails in a certain case while also dealing with a personal tragedy, like I said, it's a small town, so everybody knows you. Everybody knows the mistake that you made. Everybody looks down upon you for what you've done, and you have to face everyone every single day, and at the end of the day, you have to face yourself. It's a super complex character, and Kate Winslet just absolutely kills it. She completely disappears into a role like this wounded wolf in the darkness of the forest. From her look to her accent to her body language, she gives the role so much of herself and then even more on top of that. And maybe that's why she won the Emmy Award for Outstanding Actress in a Lead Role. In this genre of shows, it's very easy to take the audience for granted, because most makers, what they do is they put a lot of twists and turns and they think that the audience is not smart enough to figure it out. But I can safely say that this show will respect your intelligence, and more importantly, it will reward you for your intelligence and your patience by the end of the show. The evening the finale of this show came out on HBO Max, their servers crashed. That's the level of mystery and the audience that the show has gained over the first season. And finally, I'm really happy to say that number 4 is a Tamil show called Vilangu, streaming on ZEE5. Apart from a handful of shows, not many Tamil shows have really made the mark, especially considering how much competition there is from the rest of the country. In every way, in terms of standard, in terms of writing, in terms of quality and consistency of Hindi web series, you have to credit them for this. Not many Tamil shows have really hit the bullseye in terms of all this. And then I watched Vilangu. Vilangu came out in February this year, and I got a chance to watch it only recently. When I spoke about it on Twitter, a lot of people gave me shit for why I watched it so late and that I'm late to the party, and I understand, I agree. I know I'm late, but on the other hand, why do we have to watch everything in the opening weekend in this continuous binge in a single day, and then after a week just forget about it? Anyways, I'm glad I could watch it leisurely after the bus, because it's an astonishingly rich and complex and layered show which really requires your attention. Some of you might know this, I have spoken about this before, but my favorite show of all time is The Wire. I even made this video about it. That show is about the war on drugs in Baltimore, America, and they show both sides, cops and gangsters. One thing that stands out about that show is how realistic it is, how they show cops to be absolutely helpless when facing such a huge drug network, how they have to play by the rules when the enemy is constantly slipping away because they have no rules. While I was watching Vilangu, I really got reminded of The Wire, because it captures that same helplessness. A few police officers in a small town have to investigate a series of murders while facing the pressure of their superiors, while facing the pressure of the investigation being leaked to the media, while giving up on their family life, and while the criminals are just roaming free in broad daylight. To be honest, I was just shocked at how well made the show was. It was so focused on the story it wanted to tell, and how it was so free from any kind of distraction that most shows become a prey to. The writing is just And the performances, every single actor, no matter if they have just few minutes of screen time during the entire show, every performance feels so natural, but at the same time so meticulously detailed. One of the actors that I have to give credit for is Bala Saravanan. He's appeared in mostly these Tamil comedy movies as a side character, but here he's been given such a meaty role and he just... But the star of the show in more ways than one is, of course, the lead actor Vimal. He had a great start in the beginning of his acting career with films like Pasanga, Vagai Sudava. Then he also did some really successful comedy films, but after that he just started taking up a lot of different projects which just disappeared in the dust. And this is his redemption arc. I don't know if it's his off-screen personality or the direction that the creators of the show gave to him, but he plays this rigid, this stoic police officer who also has a lot of emotions and fear and so many things just suppressed inside him. There's one particular scene, Vimal's character Paridhi, he's an SI in the show. In this scene, he's supposed to be having this casual conversation with one character, but inside, deep down, he's extremely scared shitless. And he can't show that out because he has to maintain that casual tone with this particular character. While he maintains that casual expression, you can see drops of sweat on his forehead and this 25% nervousness in his face, right? That's what I don't know if it's the direction or the performance or both. It absolutely nails the emotion of that scene to the T. If you've not watched the show yet, that's completely okay because even I watched it so late. Whether you're from Tamil Nadu or you're not from here, please watch the show because it's not just a new frontier for Tamil web series, but it hits like the gold standard for Indian web shows also. And that's it for today's video. Those were some of my recommendations for my favorite murder mystery TV shows. I'm sure there are many more that you probably liked. Let me know in the comments. Please hit like so that YouTube becomes happy and shows this video to even more people. And for now, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next Friday.